They'll not be here, and Supervisor Grady appears to be absent as well, so we have 25 in attendance. Citizen comments. Any citizen wishing to address the board? Any citizen comments? Citizen comments. Seeing none, citizen comments are closed. Chairman comments. I don't have any specific comments. Once the F is read, I will make a statement as we get started with the discussion. Mary, do you need to read this, or? I don't know if you have to or not.
I can if you want me to. Review and discussion of the County Board Committee restructuring per Resolution 135.
Okay. As you recall, we had Resolution 145 before us. 135. And when it was passed, there is a statement in here, be it further resolved that the Kenosha County Board of Supervisors shall review at a committee of the whole meeting the committee restructuring no later than the second board meeting of January 2012. We had a meeting, we had the issue on the full board agenda meeting in January, which was a follow-up to the survey that was conducted by the by the Extension Education Office. My position is that we had ample opportunity to discuss, ask questions, follow up on that survey if we were so inclined. It was at the Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee meeting last week, and the concern of Supervisor Hallman and I believe Supervisor Gable is that, in fact, we did not follow the letter of the ordinance and have this, or the resolution, have this discussion in a committee of the whole meeting. So, it is before us this evening. Also in Resolution 135 is a request that committee chairman give a report as to the restructuring and how that may or may not be working for them. So we will hear from each of the supervisors. I'm going to allow Supervisor Brunig to make a comment initially. If she'd like to comment for her committee at that time, that's fine. I will then comment for the executive committee, and we will open it up to the remainder of the committee chairman. And at that point, we can have any discussion and debate you'd like to have. Ms. Winnett is here this evening as well, so if there's questions specific to the survey that was conducted, you are welcome to ask her questions throughout the meeting also. So what I'd like to do is get through the reports from all of the committee chairmen if they're inclined to give one. And at that point in time, we will open it up for questions. So if you have a question on a report that's given early, please make a note, jot it down, commit it to memory, whatever the case may be. We will come back and have that discussion, that dialogue, following any reports that are made. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did have a meeting about this last Wednesday. I had mentioned twice on the board floor that we would be discussing this at the Extension Education Committee. There were no supervisors that came forward to voice their opinion. So I am just going to go with what is the consensus of our committee, and then I will poll my committee just to verify that that is correct. Our consensus came to Extension Education when we combined them into Planning and Development. We cut their time so that they only had a half an hour. It looks like during the next term, our recommendation to the new committee will be that they start at 6 o'clock so that they can have a full hour, or to adjust it according to their agenda, what they have on their agenda, but to allow 15 minutes in between Extension Education and Planning and Development so that they can transfer over to the other room. We did find that working in the one of the side rooms at the county building worked out a lot better for Extension Education. And then we walked over to the main hearing room for our Planning and Development hearings. So I believe that that is the consensus of the group, but if you would indulge me, I would like to poll my committee just to verify that.
Sure.
Supervisor Esposito? Supervisor Decker? Yes. Supervisor Gable? Supervisor Hallman? Aye. Supervisor Underhill? Aye. Supervisor Kohlmeyer? And we are all in agreement. And this is also what we have discussed with Teddy Winnett and her staff at the last meeting. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. on behalf of the Executive Committee, and I will also echo the comment from Supervisor Brunig, we had an opportunity to discuss this issue with Ms. Winnett here, and the survey results that were presented before us. I don't recall more than a couple of questions that were really procedural or clarifications that were specific to the presentation of the information provided. So the suggestion that I've heard that somehow this has not been afforded due process, I certainly do take exception to that. Supervisor Bruning also offered on a number of occasions to attend any meeting, particularly the one that they had last week in the her committee, to talk about it. She publicized that on more than one occasion, and again, there wasn't much discussion. I'm happy to have the conversation tonight. We're here to do it. I just want to point out that sometimes I guess you just need to take the initiative. As far as the Executive Committee is concerned, when the conversation about reorganizing the county board first began, one of the things I liked the most about the discussion and about the potential for the reorganization was the opportunity for the leadership of the county board to have a committee in which they could meet. Now, I know that phrase in and of itself is something that some, if not many, in the county board from time to time don't like, negative connotation to it. Any way you put it, I think the truth of the matter is you have to consider the use of the term board leadership in reference to the chairman and chairwomen of the committees is not one that is a stretch or one that is in any way empowering a situation that shouldn't be. So when I talk about it, I use it in that sense. It is the chair people of the committees to have an opportunity for a public agended meeting on a regular basis, to have that group come together, I think was the right thing to do, and it has proved to be very effective. The primary focus of the committee to date has been looking at a number of existing policies that have been in place. We have a policy that will be on our agenda at the next meeting, which is the property and security policy, which dates back to 2004 and has never been completed. The contracting policy, which was on the county board at the last meeting and passed unanimously, I believe, had been sitting out there since 2000, I believe it's 6 to 8 years old, if I'm not mistaken. So to bring the members of the committees together, to work through policies, to work through governmental issues. You talk about the intergovernmental agreement with the casino and moving that back to the board and having that opportunity to have that discussion take place with the leadership of the board, I think has been effective and I think it's been efficient. And it gets here with a consensus that spreads across a number of committees. Again, my main purpose is the opportunity to have that public and open discussion amongst the chair people. I think it's been effective. We're going to hear or have heard some issues and concerns about timing. I've been in the legislative committee in the past. We've had some long meetings, but if you take out the agenda, the specific agenda items, which are these policies, which have taken a significant amount of time, I see no change in the duration of the meetings or the longevity of the meetings, or for that matter, the expeditious manner in which the business is attended to in the legislative committee, or what was previously the legislative committee as compared to the executive committee. So questions, I'll certainly be able to answer them when we get to that point. Supervisor Elverman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just speak briefly on the Public Works and Facilities Committee. I think that is probably the one committee that really blended together and made horrible sense to blend. Most of the staff is involved in both the facilities, Public Works. Gary Sipsma.
You said, excuse me, Supervisor Elverman, you said horrible sense?
No.
Okay, I thought you said made horrible sense.
I don't know what words I use, but good sense. Let's say good sense.
I just wanted, because I saw different reactions, people took it different ways. I wanted to be clear.
Well, I could have said horrible. That would make sense to me. Most of the staff is involved in both. It does naturally keep the director Mr. Arbit from having to attend 2 meetings. We have done a very good job of switching up those meetings. If we hit a big item on golf and run them first through the meeting, we'll naturally have them last at the next meeting and let the parks people go home early. We do not make people stick around for the whole meeting. We get into facilities this winter. That's been running down. As you know, many of our projects are completing or completed, with just little spring cleanup. So it's worked out very well. We've had slightly longer meetings, but you have to think that you are combining a little bit more. We're into facilities. I think it goes very hand in hand. I don't think anyone's had a big problem with it, and I think we're getting smoother as we go along. So I think it's worked out quite well. I'm going to add at the end of this something that I know is going to come up here this evening, and I would like us to start our normal meeting at 7:30, so I'm just going to throw this in. There's people that aren't pleased with the new committee structure, and I think they have to realize that with our next county board, we're going to be down to 23 supervisors, and it's going to be a much more involving atmosphere for some of those supervisors that are displeased. I know everything that I've been involved with is working well here, so I would certainly urge that we don't at this point change. Thank you.
Thank you. Clark, Noble? Who would like to go next? Supervisor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I just want to thank you and recognize you for your leadership in bringing this forward to the county board, this change in committee process. We downsized. We need to look forward and think forward. And as I've heard comments about the all-powerful Finance and Administration Committee. I never looked at it that way. The committee process makes recommendations to the county board. And here's where it's done on the county board. One man, one woman, one vote. For my first years on the county board, my first 4 years, I was not on the Finance Committee. But there were things that I believed passionately about, and I went to the committee, I brought my issues to the committee, and I brought my issues to the county board, and there were some big things that were accomplished. The levy cap resolution was brought forward by one supervisor, by 6 supervisors, and it was brought to the Finance and Administration Committee. I wasn't a part of that committee, and it came out of committee. That was a huge piece of legislation. So to sit there as a supervisor and believe that I'm not on a certain committee, that I can't be effective in a certain area, is an excuse. I mean, you all bring something to the table. There's been discussion about how long these meetings are, and I asked Donna, the secretary for the Finance and Administration Committee meeting, to give me the start and end times of all the meetings. She went above and beyond. And from May of last year through March, the Finance and Administration Committee met 16 times. We met for a total of 43 hours and 10 minutes. From the period of March, the same period from May of 2010 until March of 2011, the committee met 16 times. The Finance Committee, 42 hours and 15 minutes. We were within 1 hour. The Administration Committee met 11 times for a total of 21 hours, 21.3 hours. When you put those 2 times together, previously they were meeting for 63 hours compared to 43 hours. What was suspected in putting this together, that there would be efficiencies of putting them together, is true. We've tackled some major issues in that time, and I just want to just kind of take a run through it. Things that weren't there in that prior term. We had a claim on the Wisconsin retirement system. We had to go into closed session and talk for an hour, hour and a half with an attorney. We had multiple meetings just on that issue. We had post-Act 10 issues relative to the employment policies. We had Highway 70 policy. We had the Highway 90 or the Local 90 for the jail. We were addressing those policies. We, as a committee, had over a 4-hour meeting allowing our employees, our representative employees and their local leadership to come in and go through those policies line by line and talk about the changes, to hear their concerns. That meeting was over 4 hours alone, just that one meeting. We had other meetings relative to that issue. We had to then redo the policy for the entire county. You know, we had to deal with that. Budget repair bill, we had to terminate collective bargaining. We had to have discussion relative to that. We had 2 meetings in that same period of time, presentations on the joint services and their software. I don't recall in my previous years having a joint services presentation outside of the budget hearing. We had IT presentations to the Finance and Administration Committee. Again, the only time we had that previously was in the budget hearing, a 20-minute presentation. So we had more oversight, we had more input. We had a presentation and a review and discussion relative to tax deeded properties. That wasn't something that was out there before, where we're sitting down talking about being clear about what the policy is, how we're going to go through and set the values. We had to talk about the 2012 health plan. There was presentations relative to that. In prior years, that was part of the collective bargaining. It came in. We had a substantial move and substantial discussion regarding the health plans. We had a waste management presentation in this last year relative to the change in that contract and what it meant. That wasn't there in that last period. And again, one of the biggest things that multiple administration committees have been working through is the non-rep pay plan, the modification of the non-rep pay plan to get that to become reality. We've accomplished that in this last term. We did that all in 42 hours, the same amount of time that it took the previous finance committee, plus we picked up all the duties of the administration committee. What's the benefit? Certainly the time from our administration, the time for our clerical or for our custodial people to have the building open. We had fewer meetings. The minute preparation alone, we changed the policy on the minutes going to a tape. If you remember looking at the administration committee minutes, how much less time is invested by our clerical people. More supervisors on the finance committee. We have 2 more supervisors. I can't, having Supervisor Grady on the finance committee, another supervisor who wasn't in that loop, to be able to bring his eye to the table and his thought process, to be able to get Supervisor Rose, have him be on that committee. I mean, I look at 7 people on the committee, you got 7 different views. I think that was positive. I think as supervisors, you have the ability to go to fewer meetings and take a bigger bite out of the apple. And we had more supervisors attending committee meetings. For the public, they don't have as many committee meetings to go to if they want to go to get an issue, and again, they're getting a bigger bite of the apple. This has been, in my opinion, a huge success. A huge success. While people don't like change, change is inevitable. I think this was a positive move, and I think we should go forward as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Noble?
Thank you. The Health and the Human Services Committee really didn't change at all, other than we went from 5 members to 7. So, and to speak on the 5 to 7, I think that that probably added to the value of input from the supervisors. You just get more opinion, and so, and if we're downsizing to 23, I do believe just about every supervisor, if we stay at 7 members, will serve on 2 committees once we're down to 23 members. So that's all I have to say.
Just for clarification on that point, the resolution or the ordinance change allows for 5 or 7 members at the prerogative of the county board chairman, with the exception of the finance committee, which requires 7 for reference. Supervisor Michael, I believe you would be the final.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Clearly, the judiciary and law has not changed. We did, as other supervisors have stated, we've changed our number from 5 to 7, but our meetings are consistent, very short, except for the last one. We did have a presentation by Joint Service Director regarding the RFP for the new software. We also did have Bob Riedel come in to explain some of the concerns of the jailers now that they have their new schedule, the 5242, some of the concerns, but there hasn't been any substantial change in our committee. I think it's running effectively, and as the previous supervisors have stated, I think the big picture is to see what happens when the board size goes from 28 down to the 23. I think it's going to be more effective, and I think that it will be beneficial to have these committees restructured like we did, and I think it will be shown that it was very effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion, questions? Supervisor Hallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess since there were no volunteers, I'd go first. Through the chair to Corporation Counsel, Mr. Bernie Vosh, if he could tell us what the purpose of a committee of the whole is.
This county board uses a committee as a whole as a special committee, usually for a singular purpose. It's an informal committee that is usually limited in scope and devotes singular time to that one topic to air it out and get different viewpoints and try to come to some approach, some consensus on whatever the topic might be. Sometimes it's, as you know, as some of the supervisors have been here a long time know, sometimes it's a technical process that's being introduced, and sometimes it's just a difficult subject that has to be tackled. But that's the basic nature of our use of the committee as a whole. Other organizations in other countries use it for a more specialized purpose, but that's what we use it for. Did that answer your question?
Yes. I want to thank the chairman for following through with Resolution 135 in having the committee chairs report and in having us have this discussion. When this came up at the joint meeting of Finance and Legislative, there was a lot of enthusiasm from some and perhaps a great deal of hesitancy on the part of others to go along with this restructuring. Somehow I understood both sides of the argument and felt that what we're doing tonight would be appropriate in terms of trying to vet whether or not this worked, whether or not this would be something we would want to keep moving into the future, and to find out what the strengths and weaknesses of this are. And thankfully, Chairman Molinaro volunteered and agreed to put the language for this in writing. So my hat is off to you, Chairman, for doing this. I do want to point out, listening to the committee chairs, and one of the things that jumped into my head is that this county board leadership has risen the bar for ambition. It takes a great deal of effort for things that have been perhaps stalled or lagging of previous county boards, to move them, to bring them to the forefront, and get them birthed out of committee. That takes a lot of effort, and it doesn't happen without ambition, without the willingness to say, we need to do this, let's commit to this and make it happen. So I want to say thank you to leadership for doing that. I want to say thank you to Supervisor Clark for giving us a bit of an idea about the efficiency regarding time. I sat in on a joint meeting of Finance and Administration, and I wondered, as I was listening to staff go through various items in the budget resolution, comparing the old budget resolution to the one that was about to be voted on, and I said, where is the efficiency in all of this? Where are the cost numbers that say that we've saved money? Where's the time study that says that we've saved time? Where is that comparison and analysis? And Chairman Clark provided some of that tonight regarding his committee, which I'm greatly appreciative of. I also wondered, because I just finished a book on the history of public benefits and how certain folks have been classified under the law, about the wisdom of those that came before us in terms of joining finance and administration together, and why it might have been separate for so long. One of the things that came to my mind, and I know this has been voiced by other members in a variety of ways, is that perhaps it's best, it may be more efficient to have both of those committees together, but it might be better served in terms of the comfort of employees and other folks involved if they didn't have to worry about the anxiety as to whether or not their labor status was going to be somehow considered along with whatever the grievance or employment issue was that was being looked at the time. I don't know that for certain, but certainly I think there's good wisdom in keeping those things separate, finance and admin, for that particular reason. I know we had folks who expressed some discomfort about the formation of the executive committee. I think back to my days in college when I would look at my dean of students and say, why can't you do this? You have the power to do this. You have the ability. Why can't you? And he would always give a very interesting answer. He would say, it's within my sphere of influence, or I'll see whom I can influence. I'll see what I can do to help get it done. And I think a lot of the hesitancy around the formation of the executive committee was around the idea of influence, that a person in leadership has the ability to set the agenda, to move things forward, particularly in the case of the county board chair, to set committees, and that perhaps that was sufficient in the eyes of some members, that to move further than that would have made them a bit uncomfortable. And I don't know that the folks who felt that way were necessarily comforted to a certain extent. So with that, that pretty much concludes my remarks on the matter. I'm really glad that we did this, because now we can make a really informed decision about how to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Frederick, Boyd Frederick.
And listening to everything that was done, especially through Supervisor Clark, is I almost think with the different committees, so much is being done, is maybe we start sharing the minutes with the different supervisors that's going on at the different meetings. So we just get the little packet and would give us a little more information about what was done at the meetings and why. You know, I'm an information junkie, and I'll go through everything and try to figure out why this was done and why it's a good thing. And it could just be shared amongst us supervisors.
Well, in response to that, certainly one of the things that we've attempted to do, I've pushed throughout this term, is transparency. So our minutes are online much quicker. The audio is online along with the meeting minutes. The publication of meetings, I think, has been, in particular the executive committee, I think it gives us an opportunity, as I mentioned before. And keep in mind, this is not unique to Kenosha County in terms of an executive committee or a committee of a similar structure, where you take the leadership of the board, the chair people of the board, if you will, and you bring them together in an agended, regularly scheduled meeting. My conversations with Corporation Counsel, Mr. Volpentesta, and obviously in his defense he isn't here, is that it has afforded him the opportunity and a level of comfort to have dialogue and conversation on specific issues. And this has not been a year without some significant obstacles to overcome. If you want to talk about some of the suits we've been involved in, if you want to talk about the multiple extensions of the casino, and if you'd like to talk about some of the policies that we've tackled. He has appreciated the fact that he hasn't had the ability, as he has this over the last 6 months or so, to engage in a discussion with the chairpeople of the board to bring some of these issues to resolution. So that's a little bit off point to your statement, but the minutes and the audio on top of it are much more available than they have been in the past, and that some of that is due to push by Supervisor Hallman, and I appreciate that that's been one of his mantras since he's gotten on the board. You know, additionally, just to comment on Supervisor Clark, or piggyback on him a little bit, I've sat in on the Planning, Development, Extension, Education Committee meeting, sat in on the Public Works and Facilities, and for me to sit in and look in the room and see the multiple staff that have overlapping responsibilities, overlapping not in the sense that we have too many people who are doing the same job, overlapping in the sense that we have to have communication between departments. That in and of itself, seeing the ability to have that dialogue on a regular basis, tells me that the decision that we made as a board, a unanimous vote, by the way, which wasn't there to begin with, has proven successful. Time efficiency, I would suspect, without going through it, that we would see much similar results with all of the committees that you see through the Finance and Administration Committee. And if you're inclined to do it, I would ask for that analysis. I suspect it would be relatively simple to pull together. Anything else? Supervisor Clark.
Just briefly, I just want to thank Supervisor Hallman. I know when we discussed this change, there was a lot of suspicion and a lot of, you know, we weren't together on this, but he found a way to say, hey, let's give this a try. Let's take a look at it and go forward. And he didn't draw a line in the sand and say we can't do this. He said let's try it and see how it works. I think we've had a trial period. I think it's worked well, and certainly things can always be changed by resolution of this county board, but we have a new board with new numbers, and let's see how it works. But Supervisor Hallman needs to be given credit for having this review as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Brunig. I'm sorry. Someone's light was flashing. Alverman, was your light flashing? Supervisor Alverman.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion adjourned by Alverman, seconded by Rose. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, we are adjourned. Anyone need a recess? If not, we will call the regularly scheduled county board meeting to order. I am amazed we are only 5 minutes late. We will suspend with the, well, let's see, roll call. Roll call of supervisors, please. 26 in attendance. We remain without Supervisor O'Day and Supervisor Gail Gintz, who is excused. We have 26 in attendance. Citizen comments. At this point, we'll open the meeting up to citizen comments. Anyone wishing to speak, you'll have 5 minutes to address the board. Citizen comments. Seeing no citizen comments are closed. Supervisor reports. Any supervisor? I'm sorry, I skipped announcements as the chairman. I just have one, which is, again, a quick reminder that I wrote that down somewhere as the quick reminder. Let's see, WCA's legislative updates coming up. WCA district meetings. Again, I have the information, the calendar, the schedule. You can probably find this online. If you'd like it, let me know. I'm happy to share with you the southern, I'm sorry, let's see, where are we? No, I don't see it on here at all. For some reason, oh, here we go, Kenosha. The southeast is May 1st, 3 to 6 p.m., the Country Inn and Suites in Germantown. That will be the southeast region district, if you will, which includes Kenosha, Milwaukee, Ozaukee, Racine, Washington, and Waukesha counties. I trust it's online. I have it if you'd like it. That's all I have. Supervisor reports. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From Planning and Development, the 27 letters have gone out to the new residents in the municipalities that are going to be asked by FEMA to get their floodplain status updated. We have, in the new districts, it looks like Supervisor Decker, Supervisor Underhill, and Supervisor Gail Gens are the ones that are going to be affected by this. So they have been contacted, they have been given a copy of the letter, I believe, just so that they are aware if anyone contacts them, they know what they're talking about. Through Extension Education, we did get a report regarding the youth and governance. We received 159 nominations for the high school students from 11 high schools throughout the county. There were 40 applications that were returned, and we have scheduled 27 interviews involving 8 different high schools throughout the county. These interviews will take place on the 28th and 29th of this month, and after that we will be bringing forward a new list of youth to be sitting on our committees. Thank you.
It's also my understanding, Supervisor Brunig, that any student who is part of the 27 that you will interview who is not successful has the opportunity to be a part of an expanded program
In the town of Salem.
in the town of Salem.
Yes,
So,
that's correct.
For me, that's great news. I'm glad to hear that we're expanding that opportunity for our youth, and the feedback that I get continues to be very positive.
Thank you.
Any other supervisor comments, reports? I see no other lights. Clerk.
Ordinance first reading to required 21 from Finance Administration Committee regarding an ordinance to repeal and recreate section 3.645 of the Municipal Code of Kenosha County, retention and destruction of records. Ordinance 22, one reading from the Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee regarding John A. and Gail E. Schultz, owner, requests a rezoning from R4 Urban Single Family Residential District and B2 Community Business District to B2 Community Business District in the town of Salem. Judiciary and Law, Planning, Development, Extension Education Committee. Brunig, yes. Esposito, yes. Komeyer, excused. Underhill, excused. Decker, yes. Hallman, yes. Gable, yes.
Supervisor Brunig.
Move ordinance number 22.
Ordinance 22, moved by Supervisor Brunig, seconded by Supervisor Esposito. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This property is located on the north side of 83rd Street, approximately 0.04 miles west of State Trunk Highway 83, which is Antioch Road. The rezoning will allow the existing parking lot to have the proper zoning in accordance with the business. The town of Salem recommended the approval for the request.
Ordinance 22 before you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
Ordinance 23, Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee regarding Town of Salem owner requests a rezoning of A2 General Agricultural District, I1 Institutional District, and C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District to I1 Institutional District and C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District in the town of Salem. Brunig, yes. Esposito, yes. Komeyer, excused. Underhill, excused. Decker, yes. Hallman, yes. Gable, yes.
Supervisor Brunig.
Move ordinance number 23.
Ordinance 23, moved by Supervisor Brunig, seconded by Supervisor Decker. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This property is located on the south side of County Trunk Highway C, which is Wilmot Road, approximately 0.02 miles east of 286th Avenue. The rezoning will allow for a previously acquired parcel to have the proper zoning in accordance with the adjacent town sewage treatment facility. The town of Salem recommended approval of the request.
Before you is ordinance 23. Any discussion? I have no lights. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, 23 carries.
24, Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee regarding Mary Waterman Smith, owner, Richard Swiddick, agent, request a rezoning from A1 Agricultural Preservation District to A1 Agricultural Preservation District and R2 Suburban Single Family Residential District in the town of Salem. Brunig, yes. Esposito, yes. Komeyer, excused. Underhill, excused. Decker, yes. Hallman, yes. Gable, yes.
Supervisor Brunig.
Move ordinance number 24.
Ordinance 24, moved by Brunig, seconded by Hallman. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This property is located on the southeast corner of County Trunk Highway B, 288th Avenue, and County Trunk Highway K, which is 60th Street. The rezoning will allow for a 2-parcel land division for single-family residential use. The town of Salem recommended approval of the request.
Before you is ordinance 24. Any discussion? I see no lights. All those in favor of ordinance 24 signify by saying aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
Resolution, one reading, 107, from Human Services and Finance Committees, a resolution to modify Division of Aging and Disability Services 2012 budget to add intoxicated driver program enhancement grant. Noble, yes. Jeff Gents, yes. Celebrity, yes. Decker, yes. Arrington, yes. Kubicki, abstain. Finance and Admin, Clark, yes. O'Day, excused. Singer, yes. Jeff Gents, yes. Eckerness, excused. Rose, yes. Grady, yes.
Supervisor Noble?
I move Resolution 107.
Resolution 107, moved by Noble, seconded by Clark. Supervisor Noble?
This resolution is from the Aging and Disability Services, and they received a one-year $50,000 grant from the state to improve treatment for completion results for high-risk intoxicated drivers program. It's a renewable for a second year. Most of the dollars will be contracted to the Hope Council to hire a part-time recovery coach to monitor, counsel, and encourage participants to complete treatment. And the program also monitors abstinence from alcohol and drug use through the use of fingernail clippings, which have been found more effective than previous methods.
Before you is Resolution 107. Any discussion? Supervisor Kubicki?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want it to be known for the record that I'm a board member of Hope Council, therefore I'll be abstaining on this particular resolution.
This will be a roll call budget modification, so you will also have that opportunity to register that vote. Anyone else on the discussion? If not, roll call, 2/3 required. P and plus if you're in favor, P and minus if you're opposed. Motion carries 25-1 with the noted abstention.
Resolution 108 from Human Services and Finance Committees, a resolution to modify 2012 budget for the State of Wisconsin Women's Health Reproductive Health Program. From Human Services, Noble, yes. Jeff Gents, yes. Celebrity, yes. Decker was not checked. Arrington, yes. Kubicki, yes. From Finance Admin, Clark, yes. O'Day, excused. Jeff Gents, yes. Eckerness, excused. Rose, yes. Singer, yes. Grady, yes.
Supervisor Noble.
I move Resolution 108.
Resolution 108 moved by Noble, seconded by Clark. Supervisor Noble.
The Division of Health received a grant funding from the state in the amount of $205,453 to serve as fiscal agent for the Women's Health Reproductive Health Program for the counties of Kenosha, Walworth, Rock, Greene, Iowa, Lafayette, and Grant counties. And of that amount, Kenosha County will be paid $14,334 for serving as the fiscal agent. The remaining $191,119 will be subcontracted to the organizations providing the services to the various counties.
Thank you. Anyone on Resolution 108? I have no lights on the board. Again, this requires a 2/3 vote. Let me clear the board. P and plus if you're in favor, P and minus if you're opposed. Resolution 108. Supervisor Ron Johnson. Thank you. Motion carries 26-0.
Resolution 109 from Human Services and Finance Committees, a resolution to modify 2012 budget for the Family Foundation's Comprehensive Home Visiting Program. Noble, yes. Jeff Gents, yes. Celebrity, yes. Decker, yes. Arrington, yes. Kubicki, yes. Clark, yes. O'Day, excused. Jeff Gents, yes. Eckerness, excused. Rose, yes. Singer, yes. Grady, yes.
Supervisor Noble.
Move Resolution 109.
Resolution 109 moved by Supervisor Noble, seconded by Supervisor Clark. Supervisor Noble.
For this resolution, the Division of Health was awarded a state grant in the amount of $366,000 for the Nurse Family Partnership Home Visiting Program. This program will focus on building strong family relationships with first-time mothers. The Health Department will hire one nurse program supervisor, 4 public health nurses, and an administrative assistant for this new program. Funding will continue for a minimum of 2 to 3 years, but will more likely run for 5 years. And Kenosha County was one of 8 proposals that received and was rewarded this grant. So
Thank you.
one of the really good things about it is it's approximately five people for 5 years will have a job.
Thank you. Any discussion? I have none. All those, again, a roll call. So roll call on Resolution 109. P and plus if you're in favor, P and minus if you're opposed. Motion carries 26-0.
Resolution 110 from Judiciary and Law Committee, a resolution to approve the appointment of Mark William Nieder to serve as a member of the Local Emergency Planning Committee. Michael, yes. Haas, yes. Johnson, yes. Singer, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. Zerban, yes.
Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move Resolution 110.
110 moved by Michael, seconded by Supervisor Haas. Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As stated, this is for the appointment of Mr. Nieder. He is going to be filling a vacant position to the committee. As stated and shown within his application and his resume, he does have extensive fire prevention, and he is a resident of Bristol. In the committee, Supervisor Haas knows this individual and stated several good things about him, so I'd urge your support for this individual to serve on this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you is Resolution 110. Anyone on the discussion? Seeing no lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
Resolution 111 from Judiciary and Law Committee, a resolution to approve the appointment of Douglas James McElmurray to serve as a member of the Local Emergency Planning Committee. Michael, yes. Haas, yes. Johnson, yes. Singer, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. Gerlich, excused. Zerban, yes.
Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move Resolution 111.
Resolution 111 moved by Michael, seconded by Johnson. Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This again is a appointment to the Local Emergency Planning Committee. Mr. McElmurray is in the chambers here today. He is the interim fire chief for the village of Pleasant Prairie. Oh, excuse me, I just heard from Mr. Clark. He's no longer the interim. He is the fire chief of Pleasant Prairie. So I apologize for that, but I commend you for your service for the fire department, and I'd urge the support for this individual for the Emergency Planning Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief, I trust now would be an appropriate time to say congratulations then. Supervisor Grady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to Supervisor Michael. I remember a number of years ago being in the basement of the public safety building. There was a large emergency area set up for natural disasters and so forth, where officials could come and meet if there were some type of difficulty or emergency that arise. Does this dovetail in with that, or is this a separate committee, emergency planning committee?
I believe that is part of it because it was prepared by Lieutenant Ed Van Tyne, who is the director of the emergency management, and that is the area that you were talking about is Mr. Van Tyne's office area, and that's where it is stationed.
Then just one follow-up question without getting too far off topic. In the remodeling of that building to our north, has that area been reconfigured, and do we have a more amenable meeting facility than what we had in the past? Does anyone know the answer to that? Still the same?
Still the same.
That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I have no lights. Before you is Resolution 111. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
Resolution 112 from Judiciary and Law and Finance Administration Committees regarding request to suspend competitive bid process for purchase of replacement electronic fingerprinting equipment and installation. Michael, yes. Haas, yes. Johnson, yes. Singer, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. Gerlich, excused. Zerban, yes. Clark, yes. O'Day, excused. Jeff Gens, yes. Eckerness, excused. Rose, yes. Singer, yes. Grady, yes.
Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move Resolution 112.
Resolution 112, moved by Supervisor Michael, seconded by Clark. Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As stated within the resolution, this is the request to suspend the competitive bid process so the Sheriff's Department can purchase a electronic fingerprinting equipment. I urge your support on this resolution.
Any discussion on 112? Supervisor Overman.
It's going to be discussion and a question. You know, this type of thing always makes me nervous when we go into sole source and we can't get this from anybody else. But I'm in agreement that the paperwork's fine. It makes sense. The thing that I'm nervous about is on the cost estimate, $360,000, and just below that, where I really start to quiver, is the funding source. Kenosha County bonded funds, and then the next sentence, or same sentence, and Kenosha City County Joint Services bank loan and a grant from the Wisconsin Department of Justice Assistance. So I guess I'll ask Supervisor Michael, how secure, and then I'm sure we've talked to Joint Services and the city and possibly our attorneys, how secure do we feel in going into an agreement with the city of Kenosha to pay a portion of this?
Supervisor Michael? Looks like that is going to be deferred
It's going to be deferred to Captain.
to Captain Faldudo.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually Kenosha County Joint Services. The City of Kenosha Police Department is not providing any funding for this. The total funding is split between Kenosha County Sheriff's Department and Kenosha County Joint Services, and a grant that was obtained from the Office of Justice Assistance that is going to come up next. There is no funding from the City Police Department. The City Police Department has purchased its own equipment, which will work with this equipment, but the actual funding comes from Kenosha County Sheriff and Kenosha County Joint Services.
But Joint Services is the city and the county.
It is, but the Joint Services has,
Its own budget.
right, its own budget, and this is coming from the Joint Services budget. There is no city involvement in that part of it.
Okay, I guess that answers my question. I'm still going to voice the concern that any time recently we're involved with the city and Joint Services, they have also reneged on payments to Joint Services in the past. Makes me nervous. I'll probably vote for this, but I think we have to really start questioning any involvement with the city of Kenosha. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Question I have, Captain, for you. You just mentioned this is for fingerprinting equipment.
It's for fingerprinting and the storage of the information gleaned from the fingerprinting equipment.
And you just mentioned the city of Kenosha has a system which will dovetail with your system, yet I thought booking, records, et cetera, was all done through Joint Services.
Right. The City of Kenosha has purchased 2 fast ID machines so that they can bring people in and put their hand in the equipment and quickly ID them based on fingerprints that have been obtained in the database. That works with this system as well. So it doesn't store the information like our booking and Joint Services will store the information. It only allows them to get the ID, get the fingerprint from the offender, and then see if there's a prior person in that database with the same fingerprints.
So we are not duplicating services here?
No, sir.
Perfect. Any discussion? I have no lights. Before you is Resolution 112. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
Resolution 113 from Judiciary and Law and Finance Administration Committees regarding 2012 Wisconsin OJA Multi-Jurisdiction Drug Task Force Grant, Southeast Area Drug Operations Group. Michael, yes. Haas, yes. Johnson, yes. Singer, yes. Frederick, yes. Zerban, yes. Gerlich, excused. Clark, yes. O'Day, excused. Jeff Gens, yes. Eckerness, excused. Rose, yes. Singer, yes. Grady, yes.
Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move Resolution 113.
Resolution 113 moved by Supervisor Michael, seconded by Supervisor Clark. Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The State of Wisconsin Office of Justice Assistant has awarded the 2012 Drug Task Force grant for the Southeastern Area Drug Task Force, which includes Kenosha, Racine, Walworth, Dodge, and Jefferson counties, for a total award of $211,792. Kenosha's share is $53,140. The resolution requests a modification to the 2012 expenditures and revenue budget for the drug unit to account for our share of the grant award. Again, this is part of the CDOG, and this is again a joint task force, and I urge your support. The Sheriff's Department has done an excellent job with this revenue, and there has been great work done with this money. Thank you.
Any discussion on Resolution 113? I have no lights. This is a budget modification, requires 2/3 vote. All those in favor, P and plus, opposed, P and minus. Motion carries unanimously.
Resolution 114 from Judiciary and Law and Finance Administration Committees regarding Wisconsin Office of Justice Assistance Live Scan Replacement Upgrade Grant. Michael, yes. Haas, yes. Johnson, yes. Singer, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. Gerlich, excused. Zerban, yes. Clark, yes. O'Day, excused. Jeffkins, yes. Akernis, excused. Rose, yes. Singer, yes. Grady, yes.
Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move Resolution 114.
Resolution 114, moved by Michael, seconded by Clark. Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a grant from the Wisconsin Office of Justice Assistance for a total of $13,600, and what we will be purchasing the fingerprint, electronic fingerprint capture station, and I urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution 114, any discussion? I see no lights. All those, this is also a budget modification. P and plus if you're in favor of Resolution 114. P and minus if you're opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Resolution 115 from Public Works, Facilities, and Finance Administration Committees to accept grant funding for the development and construction of a shared use trail in Silver Lake. Alberman, yes. Grady, yes. O'Day, yes. Gale Gens, yes. Boyd Frederick, yes. Esposito, yes. Colmeyer, yes. Clark, yes. O'Day, excused. Jeff Gens, yes. Akernis, excused. Rose, yes. Singer, yes. Grady, yes.
Supervisor Elverman.
I move Resolution 115.
Resolution 115 moved by Elverman, seconded by Clark. Supervisor Elverman.
This is the culmination of some other resolutions. Resolution 22, which authorized the park general manager to apply for grant funding for a joint use trail, and 29, which authorized the general manager to enter in an easement agreement with the Department of Natural Resources. This trail will connect our Silver Lake Park through some DNR land on the east side of Silver Lake, around close to their boat launch, into the village of Silver Lake on Highway B, and then across into their industrial park, and connecting into the a boulevard that will eventually connect into their actual, what I would call the old downtown district. Does a couple things. It actually gives access to an area that could really use the activity of the bicyclists and hikers that will use it. Lets people get from Silver Lake safely to our park. It utilizes some DNR money, this grant money, and some parkland development money. So we have this resolution to allow the general manager of parks to accept the stewardship grant and the RTA grants. I would urge your approval.
Any discussion on Resolution 115? I have no one on the board. All those in, hold on. Roll call vote. P and plus if you're in favor of 115. P and minus if you're opposed. I'll give the vice chairman a second or two. Wasn't sure if you were being arrested or what the deal was. Yeah, we're voting on 115. Motion carries unanimously.
Resolution 116 from Finance Administration Committee regarding a resolution establishing the wage and benefit package for the Kenosha County Clerk, Kenosha County Register of Deeds, and Kenosha County Treasurer for the term 2013-2016. Clark, yes. O'Day, excused. Jeff Gens, yes. Akernis, excused. Rose, yes. Singer, yes. Grady, yes.
Supervisor Clark.
I move Resolution 116.
Resolution 116 moved by Clark, seconded by Supervisor Jeff Gintz. Supervisor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Resolution 116 sets the compensation package for the elected officials, the county clerk, the register of deeds, and the treasurer. State statutes require that we set their compensation prior to their taking out nomination papers. The wage increase for these positions is 1.5% of the control point in our non-rep pay plan, which is about $1,000 a year. As far as the compensation goes, currently they are contributing to their health insurance. The requirement that they contribute to their health insurance is being dropped. There was discussion in the Finance and Administration Committee relative to whether health insurance was considered compensation and whether it could be adjusted during their term. The administration and I received a copy of a correspondence from the Corporation's Counsel's office, Mr. Cardamone, and it is not a very clear issue whether compensation is or whether health insurance is or isn't. Mr. Cardamone suggested that we have wording in our resolution that specifically identify this. So I'm going to make a motion that we substitute the resolution in the packet with the resolution that is on everybody's desk that has red writing on the back side of it. And essentially what that does in that whereas and in the red, it says the committee recommends as part of the county fringe benefit program, the county clerk, register of deeds, and treasurer be offered health insurance coverage under the same terms and conditions as the health insurance coverage offered to non-sword, non-classified county employees.
Been a motion by Supervisor Clark to amend Resolution 116 with the document on your desk with the corrections in red. Is there a second? Seconded by Noble. Supervisor Clark, anything further?
So, based on, this was prepared by the administration, Mr. Riedel, and with input from the Corporation Counsel's office, it is believed that should the county make changes to their health insurance plan or require contributions such as pay deductions out of their paycheck, that this is affording us the ability to do that, and we're doing it on the basis that we're doing it to the other classes of employees that are listed there. Thank you.
Thank you. On the resolution 116. Supervisor Kubicki.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For obvious reasons, I want to be known for the record that I will be abstaining from Resolution 116 due to my close affiliation with the county clerk. Thank you. What?
I have no other lights. Any further discussion on Resolution 116? I'm sorry. Before you is the amendment. Any discussion on the proposed amendment? All right. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Amendment carries. Before you now is discussion on Resolution 116 as amended. Any discussion? Again, I have no lights. All those in favor of roll call is requested. Oops, push the right button. P and plus if you're in favor, P and minus if you're opposed. Motion carries 24-1 with one abstention.
Resolution 117 from Finance Committee regarding a resolution to modify 2011 Treasurer's budget. Clark, yes. O'Day excused. Singer, yes. Jeff Gentz, yes. Eckerness excused. Rose, yes. Grady, yes.
Supervisor Clark.
I move Resolution 117.
Resolution 117 moved by Clark, seconded by Singer. Supervisor Clark.
Resolution 117 is a required budget modification. The Kenosha County can be charged back for personal property taxes that are paid to us. Personal property taxes are the responsibility of the municipality. When the municipality collects, or when the municipality levies for personal property taxes and they hit their due dates, they turn that money over to the county, whatever the county portion is, or to the school district in a multi-jurisdictional levy. If those taxes are not collected or written off, personal property relative to businesses, businesses are going out of business, they're going bankrupt, it's deemed to be uncollectible, the county is charged back for that portion of the taxes that are written off. So it's unlike the real estate property taxes, where if there's a delinquency in the municipality, the county buys all those property taxes. This is just exactly the opposite. Personal property, they levy, they give us our share. If they don't collect it, we have to give them the money back. So there were more chargebacks this year than in prior years. We budgeted $8,000. The chargebacks are $19,000. The other area that the treasurer needs a budget modification is in the area of tax deed expenses. There have been more tax deed transactions, more expenses, so we need to provide for that in her budget. The county treasurer's office collected $253,000 more in revenue than was budgeted. So this is we're not using the general fund, but we're actually recognizing some of that revenue to offset these expenses. I urge your approval.
Thank you. Supervisor Singer.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask the treasurer, since she's here, she wasn't at our meeting today. I just wanted to know this. I've heard the treasurer comment before that we should get rid of personal property taxes. Obviously, we can't. We're a county, but it should be looked at on a state level. What I'd like to know is how much personal property taxes do we actually collect in the county?
It's significant. It's a portion of it. If you looked at the insert as far as an exact dollar amount, it would work out to be about 10% of the entire tax levy, roughly. So it is a chunk of change. However, in our discussions informally, I discussed about how it's difficult to use a mechanism that's meant for property that in general increases in value on things that generally depreciate, like machinery in a machine shop or something like that, because that's more easily handled under something like an income tax system. So often that's a better way to deal with it.
And the other concern that you had, I believe, when we talked, is that it's administered by the local jurisdiction, so it's all it's not really administered the same.
It's inconsistent.
Very inconsistent.
Some municipalities are very good about going after people who don't pay their personal property taxes. Others are less successful in going after them. For example, if you noted in the sheet, the city of Kenosha has no personal property chargebacks. That's because they go after them in small claims court, and I have been very successful in getting that money. However, some of the other municipalities have been less successful. They don't have the staff to go to small claims court on every little personal property tax issue. This year, the big issue was we had one major company in the town of Randall go bankrupt, that their entire chargeback for us was more than the amount we budgeted for the entire year and more than the amount of chargebacks for every other municipality. So it was really an outlier this year that we saw.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have no other lights on Resolution 117. This is a budget modification. P and plus if you're in favor, P and minus if you're opposed. Motion carries 26-0.
Resolution 118 from Supervisor Clark and Supervisor Singer regarding a resolution in support of Division of Health Agreement with the City of Kenosha.
Supervisor Clark.
I move Resolution 118.
Resolution 118. I'm sorry. Moved by Clark, seconded by Singer. Supervisor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Resolution 118 is somewhat of a continuation of our discussion we had at the last county board meeting. We had lengthy discussion. Hopefully we can avoid that tonight. But in that last meeting, Supervisor Singer brought up a good point that we should say that we're for something here. and we are for settlement. We are for taking less, and we want to encourage the mayor and the administration to get this done. It seems to be a fair compromise, and let's get this done. And if they want to talk about changing the rules of the game after the fact, we can do that. But it's time to look in the best interest of the taxpayers. This passed the Finance and Administration Committee unanimously.
Thank you, and I hesitated because it's on the agenda as being from Supervisor Clark and Singer. If you're wondering why it wasn't referred, it's because it went through the committee, Finance and Administration. I just caught myself as I was looking at it. Yeah. I knew it, I just, when it was read, I didn't catch it right away. Supervisor Elverman?
Call the question.
Okay, for the record, there are no other lights. Any is there a second? Second. Moved by Elverman, seconded by Brunig to call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution I'm sorry.
Question is called on the resolution, which is 118. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Resolution 119 from Supervisor Terry Rose regarding a resolution requesting the state legislator to modify state law permitting counties to be permitted to sell alcohol in their own golf operations.
I will refer Resolution 119 to the Executive Committee.
Communication from George E. Melcher regarding future items scheduled before the Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee.
Refer to Planning, Development, Extension, Education.
Claims 24, Samuel Window, lost property.
If you'll read 24 through 29, I will refer.
25, Milwaukee Insulation Company vehicle damage. 26, Melissa Cantola vehicle damage. 27, Ralph Frederick Marcelano mistreated while incarcerated. 28, Jim Becker mailbox damage. 29, William A. Brown vehicle damage.
Claims 24 through 29 be referred to Corporation Council.
Approval of the March 6, 2012 minutes by Supervisor Elverman.
Supervisor Elverman?
Previous minutes?
Minutes moved by Supervisor Elverman, seconded by Supervisor Brunig. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Motion to adjourn by Vice Chairman Eckerness, seconded by Supervisor Esposito. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries.